El Salvador, one of the more densely populated areas in Central America, was one of the many minorities who initiated mass migration. Due to the war, the repression and violence caused unfairness, fights, and struggle for land rights, and created several disputes and economic affairs in El Salvador. Because of this, the war had pressured many Salvadorians in leaving their own home country. The Salvadorans eventually set out to immigrate into the US to find new homes and to start anew. Only a number of Salvadorans who moved into the US during the 1950s and 1960s primarily consisted of domestic workers who provide for the whole family. Throughout the continuous migration, the minorities had formed a group known as the Hometown Association, an organization which served to aid their fellow Salvadoran migrants with their needs similar to that of an actual committee. The HTA had brought many people together, had not only expanded on their minority population, but also the resurface of cultural heritage.
Some of the biggest underlying factors that contribute to and are also the products of violence in El Salvador include poverty and gender inequality. Within the population, there is numerous gender differences in employment percentages, the disparity demonstrating that male employment is often higher than female. For example, in 1991, male employment was 37% higher than female. Although the employment gap has been large, it has been decreasing slowly since 1991. In 2010, the employment gap between male and female workers was reduced to 27%. Although the employment gap continues to close, women often have limited working opportunities, often resorting to being employed in maquilas. The gap in employment between males and females can be seen as one of the greatest contributing factors to the migration of Salvadorans in search of better employment opportunities as well as higher wages. According to the Project Counseling Service, or PCS, for every 10 migrants who travel to the U.S., 7 are women, and most of them are between the ages of 12 to 32. Women traveling to the United States from various Latin American countries, including El Salvador, often risk facing various forms of violence, whether sexual or physical.
Cultural productions are significant to groups affected by diaspora because it keeps them in touch with their homelands and their culture as a whole. It allows them to not completely assimilate to their new country they live in and remember their traditions and cultures. For Salvadoran natives specifically, their cultural productions have over the years kept them in touch with their homelands and family back home. One of the main productions was the communication kept through a newspaper and now accessible on an internet website called La Prensa Gráfica. This newspaper has a section that allows Salvadoran nationals in other countries to report what is happening in their new countries and keep up with events around their lives in their new homes. This form of production is important because it helps Salvadorans keep up with current events, although they are not in their home countries anymore. Another very popular form of cultural production is through music. A Salvadorian music group produced a song titled El Hermano Lejano, which reveals and sympathizes with wanting and longing for their beautiful homeland, but needing to stay and work outside of the country to provide money for their family. This music production connects with others in their group because many can relate to the problem and be connected in that way.
The song El Hermano Lejano has actually been playing in the background of this project the entire time. We will be quiet for about 5 seconds so you guys can enjoy the tunes.
The last production is a poem by Quique Aviles titled My Tongue is Divided into Two, which describes his unique cultural perspective as being both an American and Salvadoran. Aviles confesses at the end that he likes his tongues, meaning both his cultures, and does not feel guilty for having a separation between the two. Like many diaspora groups, many may relate to this poem because they are not completely assimilated and are proud to be connected to their homelands.
To get a better understanding on how it feels to immigrate from El Salvador, we interviewed Ms. Solorzano to get an insight on her experience on leaving to America. Here are some of the highlights from our interview.
Only rich people over there have the opportunity to have good schooling and live a nice lifestyle. In this country, the US, there is a higher opportunities for us to make money without having to study into a major or have a good educational background. I found out about the US when I was 15 years old. This was actually the time I planned to come here in the first place. I came alone. I did, but I didn't keep in contact with any of them, so practically I didn't know anyone that lived in the United States. Talking to my family, meeting people that came there, going to restaurants, going to the beach.
While studying the El Salvadoran diaspora, we realized that the common theme is that they would not move back to their homeland in the hopes of a better future for their families, but they still show pride and adoration for their homeland by their remittances and constant support, much like the Hometown Association mentioned earlier. In closing, we ask Ms. Solorzano this question. With conditions now, would you rather stay here or go back to El Salvador?
I would love to return to my country, but seeing all the violence and murder occurring in my country, I'd rather stay here.
Por mi familia que tanto quiero, a los que siempre soñé brindarles